Hello everyone, this is my YouTube response for Module 2. The article I'll be focusing on is implementing the flipped classroom. It's an exploration of study behavior and student performance. I found this article in Queen's University Library, and the authors are Anya Boeve, Rob Meyer, Roel Bosker, Jorian Virtiven, Rink Hoskra, and Casper Albers. So one of the points that I found fascinating is that in studies where cohorts of subsequent years are compared with medium to large groups of students, and again this is from, they drew this from a couple of other research findings as well. They said that flipped classroom cohorts were found to outperform regular cohorts, and in terms of regular, just your conventional classroom where the teacher's in front of the class. And I tend to agree with this research findings. I find that it takes time to establish new learning culture and a way of study. This year I'm quite fortunate to teach the same students that I had last year. So after a year of practicing in class and flipped classroom situations, I find that the students are more actively engaged and understand the criteria of the lesson. They are better able to dig deeper in understanding and subsequently perform better than they did in the past on their learning tasks. But there is a caveat to this observation, is that the students are a year more mature and understand my teaching style due to having me as their teacher last year. So maybe that has something to do with it as well. The second point that I wanted to support is quite interesting, I found, is that students found it hard to deal with the fact that the learning environment changed compared to their prior experience. So initially, last year during the third term after spring break, COVID forced me to implement the flipped classroom, and that was quite the challenge for me, not having any previous experience with Google Classroom whatsoever. But I did develop a Google Classroom that implemented a variety of technological tools that supported my students. Many initially complained that it was so different from what they previously experienced, but they did actually adapt. And through, again, anecdotal evidence, I've surmised that they grew to appreciate the freedom and ability to time manage on their own. As they became more proficient at the technology, they were actually able to, demonstrate the learning at a higher level. And that was something that I was hoping would happen, but was a little skeptical that it would. My classroom this year actually is a hybrid setup with a conventional classroom, but it's also supported the Google Classroom, where I record my lessons and post links to supporting videos. This is actually pretty useful for my French immersion class that I teach, since a lot of the students don't have the benefit of having French-speaking parents at home to help them with their work. So this is another layer of support for them. Another reason that I've implemented a Google Classroom where I do kind of the flipped version is because our districts actually asked us to do so and prepare in the event that we return to stage 3 of the COVID restart plan. And hopefully we don't, but at least this time I'll be prepared and won't be caught off guard. A third point that the article brought up, and the authors said that the motivation in the students is considered an important prerequisite for their ability to regulate their learning process. It is beyond the scope of this paper to extensively review theories of motivation and self-determination. Typically, self-regulating learning was seen as a trait of some students possess, and those who score high on self-regulation perform well in any educational context regardless of how it is designed. So yeah, with that saying, that strong students most likely will be able to adapt quicker and be able to perform quite well in a flipped classroom or a conventional classroom. And again, from my experience and with my own students and my own pedagogy, I found that is true. However, it's also true for middle of the road students and the students that find their conventional classroom challenging. So the new BC curriculum supports a variety of ideas and approaches to demonstrate learning. I find that students are more motivated to fully apply themselves on a learning task or project when they have some ownership of it. So again, I deliver my lessons with supporting videos, and they are able to find their own and evaluate what it means to them. So in that principle, they're taking ownership of their learning. So again, that whole voice and choice, and that's a useful tool that I enjoy and employ actively in my own classroom. So one of the benefits is that self-assessment is an important learning component that is front and center in the new curriculum. So this is something that the students can actually archive, they record themselves, and then they could upload it to an e-portfolio, which they can review down the road as part of their through their educational journey. And our district has a capstone project, which they have to reflect and describe and explain how they've grown as students. And this is one of the very reasons why the technology in the classroom is so important for these students that are going through their education now. The fifth one is a table of quotes that the authors found. And again, these are themes that emerge from student evaluations that refer to the regulation of the learning process. So, in essence, the flipped classroom gives them a focus, but also an opportunity to delve in different branches. So video lectures supported learning. When students said if they didn't understand anything, my brain was processing information, I could pause the video and take a break. So, wonderful tool. You're not sitting there, the teacher rambling on, and then you miss, but you don't have that opportunity to stop and reflect. So participation in lecture supported learning. So there are many example questions and peer explanations worked well for better understanding for the application. So again, students are able to peer evaluate and do some feedback, constructive feedback that way. And this is one of the platforms that I found quite supportive. Procrastination is prevented by having to hand in questions. I was able to keep up with the reading, was able to follow the lectures better. So again, you can establish due dates a little bit more easily. Students aren't going to misplace it or forget about it. It's attached right there on the Google Classroom when you have an assignment due. It tells you exactly when it is. So it's easier for them to manage their time. Again, this is a way that they have a little bit more freedom and ownership of their own planning. That was one of the additional comments that this finding actually said. And sometimes there was more passive explanation desired. So a couple students said, it would have been preferred for more explanation of the theory, in the lecture. So sometimes the nuances of what the teacher is saying perhaps isn't explained well in the video. So, in reading the room kind of thing is something that they found was a little bit difficult to assess or ascertain. And I think it was good for preparation, and it was useful, and the preparation in class sometimes is useless to them. So they were able to prepare for these lessons on their own when they were ready. All right, so these are a couple of the benefits of using technology in the classroom in terms of study habits and having the opportunity to tackle learning tasks on their own time in unique and different ways. And yeah, thanks. I'm hoping that this all worked out.